All right, so we're going to transition into talking about umpires.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so youth baseball, obviously, they're not great.
Not great.
They vary widely. There can be some very good ones. All of them are human beings. They're people, right? But I don't know what you got on umpires.
So here's my deal with umpires is when was the last time that you got – I mean, well, if you're not a baseball person, the last time that you went to a baseball game and you went home and you're like, man, that was a really great umpire. It's probably never. But the amount of times that you get in your car after a game and you go, oh, my gosh, that umpire sucked is like every single time.
Yeah.
So that has always bothered me because did you ever umpire? I umpired very briefly when I was younger.
Mm-mm.
Okay. It's not easy, and it kind of stinks. And umpires are, like you said, human beings, and often in short supply. And I guess I would say from a technical perspective, probably not very good until you get up into like high school and maybe even like college. Like college, I'm sure, and you can attest to this more than I can, but the jump from high school umpire to college umpire and then college umpire to like pro ball umpire is enormous on each step of the way. So we have to kind of accept that because also you could easily make the argument that the player talent at each level reflects the umpire, right? So it's like it's hard to request that an umpire be perfect when your pitcher can't throw strikes. So
Right.
I always like keep that sort of in the back of my mind anytime I'm at a baseball game. And I was having this conversation with a dad the other day that I don't even need an umpire to be good, air quotes, in that I don't need him to have like a perfect zone and he's like, really good at establishing his corners of the plate and the top and bottom of his zone. I just need someone who's semi-consistent because what we tell all of our players, whether we're talking to our pitchers or our hitters or our catchers, is once the zone has been established, you can adjust to it, right? So if you're getting two baseballs off the outside part of the plate consistently, you throw a lot to the outside part of the plate. And so consistency is by far the biggest quality of an umpire that you look for. Now, you don't always get that. And we have, especially like some of the younger, even younger than 13U, those games that I've gone to see at 9U, 10U, 11U, those zones are enormous and often inconsistent. And they fluctuate based on oftentimes the how the game is going. So like if you have a team, we had this at one of our tournaments recently this year. I think it was actually our first tournament that we were just like beating up on this team, and so their umpire gave their pitcher an enormous zone and didn't shrink our zone necessarily, but I knew that was coming. Like that was a thing that the umpire should have done. And I think it gets easy for a parent in the stands to be like, oh my gosh, he just called that pitch a strike and it was at my son's shoelaces. I'm like, yeah, but we're also winning like 14-0. And if he doesn't call that pitch, we're never going to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I guess that was kind of a rambling rant, but I oftentimes I have like a special like spot in my brain for umpires where I'm like, I get it. I get what you're trying to do or what you're going through. And until they get really egregiously bad, which honestly I haven't seen, and when I say bad, I mean really inconsistent in that it's a close game and he's giving their pitcher a huge zone and my pitcher a really tight zone. I really haven't seen that too often yet.
Yeah, and for me, like I don't pay that much attention to the umpires. I just assume they're going to be bad, and I don't really mean that in such a negative way. I just we've talked about it with our players. I'm like, look, just expect the umpires to be bad and expect to get screwed out of some calls, but that's just the way it's going to be. It's just like playing on a bad field. Like, expect to get bad hops. Like, I'm not going to throw a fit about it when, the ball hits a huge rock or very uneven tuft of grass and takes a weird hop. Like, it's just like, it is what it is, right? So
and
umpiring kind of just, like, it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's, if you use that analogy, their shortstop is dealing with that tuft of grass the same way that you are.
We're all doing the same thing. The same thing with mounds. Like I have no tolerance for pitchers complaining about mounds.
Mm-hmm.
You hear it all the way up. It doesn't matter. Like I heard it till my last season. Like guys complain about the mounds, and it's like, bro, on the other team is throwing a shutout using that same mound. Like what's the deal? What do you have to complain about? I don't get it. And with all those things, both teams are going through the same conditions. Even with the luck involved with bloopers and bad calls and good calls, it's all going to even out in the long run. Now, when it's like an important game and you get screwed, so I'll give you an example. We were in a 4-2 game in like the 5th or 6th last weekend, and one of our bottom of the order hitters was up, and it was a 3-0 count. So I'm like, okay, they might walk in a run. We have one out, and we might punch in 3 or 4 runs this inning. 3-0 pitch comes in, it's a strike, fine. 3-1, 3-1 pitch comes in. It was a clear ball. It was mid shin at best. I mean, it was a brutal call. Calls it a strike. We get to 3-2, and then he strikes my hitter out on 3-2. Now, that one pitch changed really the whole game, because that was a clear ball. It had been a ball the whole game. It was not like he was calling that pitch consistently. It was like an outlier. It was not close. I mean, when I say mid shin, like the catcher was catching it with his glove pretty much on the turf. It was a turf field. And that was a walked-in run. It was also a slightly better hitter coming up, and also being only one hitter away from the top of the order coming up, still with bases loaded. Because with one out and the bases loaded, likelihood of a double play is still very slim. So the likelihood we got our leadoff hitter up was pretty high, and we were going to have him up with either a one-run deficit or a tie game at that point, or a lead. And that 3-1 pitch legitimately changed the game, and that sucks. Like, it's hard to say, well, over time it evens out, because it will. But in that one situation, I mean, we pretty much lost the game on that one call. Now, on the other hand, same thing I tell my players, you guys should have got more runs earlier. Like, it's your own fault. Like, you should have waited till the 6th inning. You should have capitalized on earlier opportunities. You should have had better at-bats. We shouldn't have put ourselves in a position where one pitch and one at-bat could change the game. However, sometimes there's just games where you just don't get that many opportunities either. And when the opportunities that you do get kind of get taken from you, they get taken from you. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's hardly worth complaining about. It's just life as a baseball player.
Yeah, and we had a situation go our way in one of our games recently where it was I want to say it was a 3-1 game, and we had runners we were in the field. They had runners on first and second with no outs. So the beginnings of what was gonna be a big inning, and it was the wind was really swirly that day. And this kid up hits this really, really high pop fly behind third base, and so our third baseman runs back into the outfield and then is like camped underneath it, and like kind of moving around, and then lunges off to his left, and the ball hits the ground. So the kid on second base doesn't know what to do. He's freaking out, and then when the ball drops, he runs to third. We throw to third, and by some miracle, I don't know, our pitcher tags the runner. So that runner's out. What should have been a force play, right? So he should have been on the bag. Well, then I'm like, there's like some commotion, and I'm like, what? And the base umpire goes, I called infield fly, that the batter's out. So now we tag the runner out at third, the hitter's out, so now we have 2 outs and a guy on second. So completely nuked the inning. And their coach went, not insane, but like was clearly upset because he never heard the infield fly call. I didn't hear the infield fly call either. Should it have been an infield fly? Absolutely not. His argument, the umpire's argument was, well, he was camped underneath it, because that's what you're taught as an umpire is if they can make the play on the ball with their back to the outfield and they can camp underneath the ball, that's infield fly. The problem was it was in the outfield grass, and the wind was just like
how far in the outfield grass?
He was probably standing 15 feet, 20 feet in the outfield grass. And, I mean, the wind is at play here, so it was not a routine play. But, okay, but let's say, I mean, that's his judgment call, so ultimately you have to defer to him. So he calls an infield fly. The other thing was I never heard it. Apparently our pitcher heard it. I never actually asked him, but apparently our pitcher heard it because he had the presence of mind to tag the runner instead of tagging the base. So
good job, lad.
Yeah, no, it was Grant. So that was a situation. So then, their third base coach was upset, and this brings me to my next question, is I was kind of like putting myself in his shoes, what my reaction would have been, because it would take a lot for me to like get in an umpire's face or yell at an umpire, just because, I mean, in the baseball I've played, it's never made a difference. Like when I can't remember the last time that someone yelled at an umpire and it ended up being good for their team in the long run. And also it's, at the end of the day, they're a human being. We're assuming they're trying their best, and maybe they're making mistakes, maybe they're not. And some guys are bad at that job, just like there are bad coaches and there are bad players. But I was just like, his argument probably should have been, why in the world didn't you yell that much louder? If that's going to be the call.
Yeah, that's something that would get me heated for sure. If you don't make the call early enough to where it screwed my runner, like, yeah, that's a problem.
Well, and the umpire was like, well, I said it. And it's like, well, you didn't say it loud enough. If there's question on the field about what that play was, then it wasn't said loud enough.
Yeah, for sure. That's always extremely clear when it's an infield fly at higher levels. I mean, as soon as the ball goes up, or shortly thereafter when the ball's on its way up, I mean, they make it very, very well known. And yeah, I don't know, the 15 feet in the outfield thing, I don't know that I have a huge problem with, because if he is camped, I mean, the ethos of the infield fly is that if you're camped, you can just let it drop right between your legs, pick it up, and get an easy double play. And if that still is kind of what could happen, then, maybe that's the right call. So, but obviously, like, if it gets pretty far into the grass, like, you don't see the infield fly called probably more than, like you said, that 15 feet into the outfield grass. That's just not realistic. But, yeah, I get that. And I'm in the same way. I'm not going to go argue umpires just because I'm irritated about it. The only time I'm really going to go out is to like protect my player, and I had that actually come up this past weekend. I didn't do it. I just kind of hesitated. We had a bang play at second base where it looked like he was out. The ball beat the guy by a bunch, but it took a kind of a big turf hop up. The throw was kind of didn't make it there, and it didn't take a long hop. It took like a medium kind of skippy bounce rubber turfy hop. It's a weird way of describing it, but the tag looked like it was there. The ball beat him by a bunch. Could he have been under it? I mean, it was iffy. But my shortstop got a little upset about it, and he, like, said something to the umpire, nothing, like, bad, but he, like, addressed him. At that point, I should have run out and made my case just to, like, validate him. But I hesitated, and I was kind of, like, thinking, I don't know, and I didn't.
Yeah, I've had a couple situations.
I regret that. I screwed that one up.
Yeah, I've had a couple situations this year where I've gone out just for, like, token conversations where there have been two situations where that has happened. So there was a play at second and a play at home where the ball beats the guy, but I saw our player miss the tag on both occasions. But it was just like the ball beat them by so much that it's one of those situations where you expect the umpire to bang him just because it was so obvious. And so I had to go out there just for that same reason where, like, our players were like, oh, I tagged him. And I'm like, no, you didn't. But I'll go out there and talk with the umpire for 30 seconds just so it looks like there's some, like you said, that you're on the player side rather than some, like, weird neutral party.
Yeah. And I told this story longer in my own podcast, but we had the same two-man crew for both of our bracket games, the first game which we won, the second game in the semifinals which we lost. And they just did a really great job. They're fantastic umpires. They're really nice guys. They seem to, like, be just, like, good baseball guys. So I, like, chat with them and kind of BS with them between pitches and, like, as we were exchanging lineup cards, when I make a change, like, whatever. And I told the field umpire who made that call at second base, I'm like, hey, man, about that play at second. He was like, like, he was safe. Like, he got under. I'm like, it wasn't that. I'm like, I just should have run out. I should have run out and, like, we should, like, had it out a little bit just so, because my player got a little upset. And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, look, if you got to come out here and just, like, pull me aside and be like, hey, you didn't make the wrong call, but I got to give you a little bit of hell and make a, like, you come out here and do it, man. You just come in here, like, I get it. He's like, it's fine. Like, protect your boys. I'm like, it's again, like, good guy. Yeah. He was a cool dude. And as it turned out, I screwed up again at the end of the game. We were down 2 runs in the last inning, runner on first, 1 out. Our guy hits a little humpback liner over first baseman's head. And just it was like an exciting back and forth game. Our runner was clearly going to go first to third easily standing up. And as soon as he starts going, I scream, and my voice projects really loud, like, get here, get here. And then I look over, and our third base coach is holding him. And I was like, and sure enough, he, like, got halfway to third and then stopped because he saw the hands. Yeah. And I'm like, to my third base coach, I'm like, why did you hold him? And I get that it was like a base-to-base situation because that was the first of 2 runs that we needed, but at the same time, to me, it was like right off the bat, guaranteed, like a no-brainer. But anyway, like, I crossed him up. That was my fault. And anyway, he gets in a little pickle, goes back to second. The throw goes back to second, and he slides in feet first. Ball beats him by a ton, and it was like 9 out of 10 times they call him out. He called him safe. And after the game was over, we lost. We did play. He scored actually for us, but we lost by a run. He came over and he's like, "See, I got you. I got you." He's like, I'm like, he's like, so he helped me out because I don't know. We just like had a good rapport, you know. And
That's the amount of times. Here's what I tell
he didn't
everybody.
have to give us that call. Most of the time, he was out. For
And
sure.
the amount of this is what I tell everybody. I will always try to be best friends with the umpires because the amount of times that I can think of situations like that where I probably got the benefit of a doubt just because the umpire liked who I was versus the amount of times that the umpire was scared I was going to yell at him. Like, you clearly get way more calls being the guy of the two dugouts on the field. You want to be the guy that the umpire. I like that dugout more than I like this dugout because he's going to screw the other dude more than you. So. Yeah. I don't know. I just like the whole like getting in an umpire's face and kicking dirt and all that kind of stuff. Just doesn't really have a place in youth baseball.
That was one of the things he told me. He's like, "Yeah, if you need to come in here and kick some dirt on me, just do it." He's like, "I won't toss you. Don't worry."
Yeah, but yeah, it's tough. Sometimes we've had a couple plays where again I've seen the umpire make the right call, but our parents have seen something else, and that's the other thing where it's like. Just making sure that parents aren't like if something needs to be said, the umpire it needs to be coming from coaches because that's the other thing that'll piss an umpire off super fast is when they're getting it from every angle.
Yeah, and of course on the flip side of that, like one of our first games, we had a triple header. It was not like a sanctioned tournament; it was just a round robin. And we had the same 2-man crew for all 3 games. And at before the very first pitch, we went over ground rules, and he was like, "Yeah, so you've got." 1 minute between, you get 8 pitches, and then you get 5, and you get 1 minute between. And if they're late, if they're not out there quick enough, I'm gonna cut them off. I'm like, wait. So if my pitcher's slow out there, he's only gonna get 3 warm-up pitches. I'm like, dude, that's not okay. Like my pitcher needs his warm-ups, and he's like, then just get him out. I'm like, I am gonna get him out there, but just
don't.
Like, what are you doing right now? Like we're not. This isn't the freaking World Series. Why do we need to be? Like exact on 1 minute. This isn't one of those massive tournaments where it isn't really important to be on time. Like, dude, my pitcher's arms matter way more than 15 seconds of your time.
Right.
So that's just the kind of thing. Like a lot of the umpires, like again, I'll just kind of like chat with them a little bit between innings here and there, and most of them are just like relaxed. It's youth baseball. Who cares? We're here to like all do a decent job. It's not that big a deal. And this guy's making a big deal about. Being like the pitch count Nazi, it's like, come on, dude. Like, it's not okay for my pitcher to get 3 pitches to warm up. 5 is even a little bit short. Like, that's normal. I get it, but it's like, come on, man.
And that is a thing that you'll hear, which I do agree with, is that's one of the signs of a bad umpire as a guy who is trying to affect the game. Like, this is gonna be my game, and I'm gonna if your pitcher's late, he's not gonna get all this. Like, relax. We don't need to be that crazy with stuff. And when you have umpires who want to be a part of the game that bad, then it's like, come on, relax.
And if he had just rephrased it, be like, hey, I really want to keep the game on track, so please just help your guys. I'm not going to cut their warm up short, but please just keep them in the 1 minute. Like, of course, like it's just the way he phrased it,
Right.
And he was just like, after I kind of I'm like, look, dude, and I talked to the other umpire or the other manager, I'm like. And he was like on the same page. He's like, yeah, like I like that's not okay. My kids need at least their 5 warm up pitches. Then he was just like, well, just make sure they hustle out there. I'm like, of course. Like I'm not gonna not have them hustle out. Like that's not the issue. Just if whatever happens, my catcher just happens to forget, like my backup catcher, or just someone's not ready or whatever. Don't just be a hard ass about it. Just relax. Like it's not the end of the world. We'll hustle out. Don't assume that we're not going to. I don't know. It just depends on the way you deal with people. And he ended up being a decent guy. And after the first game, we kind of chatted because the other team was a bunch of super complaining parents and coaches. They were on his case constantly about all the stupidest little things. And our parents are great, and they were just supportive of our players, didn't say a peep. So he became like our friend in our corner too. So, it's just like you said. I don't know. And again, you develop. Maybe he's got to be a little more brusque with people at first. Yeah. Just to kind of like lay down
Set
the
the
law,
tone.
and then, But he was a decent guy. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I think I got on umpires. What else you got on umpires?
I mean, you just hope they don't change. Like you just don't change the game. That's
Right,
pretty much it.
right.
But like you said, when you think about your response to them, it's like this call's not going to get changed.
Well, that's
Is anyone else on the team upset about it, or is it just I'm upset about it? the call's not going to get changed. So just kind of like it is what it is a lot of times. And it's one thing if it's become like a pattern, like that was a strike consistently, and now it's like ball, ball, ball. Like, what are you doing? Like, why is this changing? Like, my pitcher's making good pitches, and you're making it tough. When they become patterns, then you have to decide, like, I need to say something or do something because this pattern is starting to hurt our chances of winning. Whereas just like the random bad strike calls, bad, like those are just, that's just like whatever.
Well, and even then, like when it comes time for that, where you're like, okay, something needs to be said. Very rarely is the move to yell from the dugout, where it's almost always call time and go talk to a guy, because one thing that umpires don't want is they don't want you to show them up in front of a field full of people. So they don't want you to be like, hey, idiot, you're being stupid and you're doing a bad job.
Stupid, dumb guy.
Whereas if you call time and you go out and talk to him, you could be talking about anything. You could be talking about some substitution you're going to make 2 innings from now, but you can be like, hey, man, like that pitch has been there for 3 innings and now it's not there anymore. Like, what's the deal? And so you can have like a civilized conversation, and most guys will appreciate the fact that, hey, that guy came out and like talked to me and was looking me in the face rather than sheltered in his dugout like yelling things at me. So there's always a better way to get your point across, even when they start to suck, and you need to call it to their attention.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll put out there is that I don't know who started the blue thing.
Oh, I don't like that.
As a kid, I always heard blue. I thought it was okay, and then I can't remember when. And I don't think it was college. I think it was one of my first years in pro ball. I called, like I had a ball or something, and I had to get the umpire's attention, which is rare anyway, and I called him blue, and someone on my team, I think it was a coach, they was like, hey, they don't like that. Call him sir. If you don't know his name, call him sir.
Mm-hmm.
And I never forgot that. So every game I really try really hard to remember their names, and if I forget it, I ask again before I go back to the dugout. So I can yell out, hey, Alex, like,
right.
Where was that? Or Alex, can I get just to use their name. Or
Dwayne, can I get time? Dwayne.
Very least use sir. But blue's commonplace, and it's not like it's derogatory, but it's just like anything else. It's just like know their names and call them sir, like be respectful. So I tell my kids it's all sir.
Yeah.
It's not blue.
If you're a player,
it's their name, and I tell my assistant coach their name. So
yeah, I tell my players sir. I'm not even a huge fan of players saying their name either. Like players say sir.
Yeah.
Blue coming from a 13-year-old is a little like, ugh, don't do that.
Yeah. So, all right, umpires.
Umpires.